Hello and welcome to our call today, and thank you for taking the time to join our webinar entitled Optimising Collaboration in the Workplace. My name is Paula Morris and I'm Head of Campaign Management for Polycom for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and I'm joined today with my colleague Ray McGority, our Director of Industry Solutions, and we have a special guest today from Industry Analyst Canalys. We have Matthew Ball, one of their Principal Analysts. So in the session today, both Matthew and Ray will be talking about some of the key best practices, trends and tips around how to get more out of collaboration in the workplace. And they'll be going through some of the best practices and ways that you can enable collaboration in the workspace. Throughout the call, you'll have the opportunity to answer any questions in the Q&A box that you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner of the webinar portal screen. If you expand that window, you can type your question there and it will come through to someone in the team who'll be able to get back to you in the session. And we'll see at the end of the webinar if we've got any time left to put both Matthew and Ray on the spot with some of the questions that have come in. You'll also see in that bottom right hand corner the resource centre, which has a copy of today's PowerPoint that we can for you to download. Also, if you're active on social media, if you push the Twitter icon, you'll be able to follow our conversation from the @Polycom Europe Twitter handle, and you can retweet any of those messages that come through. Also, an on-demand version of this webinar will be sent out afterwards for you to either watch again or share with any colleagues. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ray and then I'll come back, hopefully with some questions that we'll then be able to ask to you at the end.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Very welcome, Matthew. So Principal Analyst with Canalys since 2004.
That's right,
yeah. Right, and an analyst for 15 years.
Yep.
So a venerable career so far, and current interest area is the Internet of Things, connected buildings.
Yep, definitely.
Enterprise trends for IT, particularly unified communications and collaboration technologies.
That's right, yeah. So that's what I've been focused for the last 15 years.
Great. So on collaboration technologies, one thing I guess to establish at the start of this would be the sort of benefits around collaboration. I'm a strong believer myself in people needing to have a perceived usefulness around technology before they're likely to come and perceive how easy to use it is or not. So what sort of benefits have you seen for collaboration?
Yeah, so collaboration is underpins everything that an organisation does. You know, most organisations want to be profitable and they want to increase revenue every year, and in order to do that they need productive workforce.
Right.
And really, collaboration can be used to transform business processes, enhance and optimize workflows, and also engage teams so they can be productive.
Okay. And any trends toward the inclusion of outsiders, I guess, in the innovation process, customers or suppliers or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, most of the collaboration projects that organisations do a lot of it's internal facing, so they often think about how to connect disparate, geographically dispersed workers, whether it's between teams or external teams. But increasingly, it's also about how to engage with customers and obviously beyond the boundary of the organisation, as well as with suppliers. So thinking about the whole supply chain.
Okay. I saw an interesting study, I guess maybe a couple of years ago, from Verizon and Microsoft. And they talked about the collaborative index as a measure for collaboration inside an organisation. Their study suggested that customer satisfaction, particularly, was highly sort of correlated, highly dependent upon the level of collaborative capability inside the organisation, which I thought was kind of interesting. And intuitively, it makes sense to me that if you can respond to a customer complaint, let's say, by having your team quickly sort of coalesce around the problem, get it solved, and then communicate back to the customer, it's bound to drive up customer satisfaction. So I thought that was a good indicator of how collaboration capability and customer interaction can sort of really marry together well.
Yeah, it's getting the right insights, getting the right expertise, and joining those together as quickly as possible to make informed decisions as quickly as possible. I think is pretty key. Now,
Polycom's been talking about workplace of the future for a couple of years now. We sort of segment that down into workspace considerations, experience considerations, and workflow considerations. Workspace is about allowing people to work from wherever they wish. Experience, we talk about how to make things easier to use, and within workflow, I think it's really talking about allowing people to stay within the work they're doing, within the application they're doing, and have communication capability from there, rather than having to move to other applications to get connected with other people.
Yeah.
So, your take on the market, where it's going, how do you see those sort of workplace of the future considerations we have fitting in?
Yeah, well, today a lot of the tools, the collaborative tools people use, they've been designed around the technology itself and the tasks rather than the people who are actually using them. So this often leads to a lot of frustration. I always think if you need to train someone how to use a system, a collaborative system, then you're not gonna, it's not going to be intuitive to use. Yeah. So automatically, it's not going to drive high usage. Okay. So today we see a lot of issues around the older types of systems where you're kind of looking at the far end of the room rather than looking at face to face and getting eye contact with people. Okay. Getting access to those systems as well is through booking systems. I know a lot of organisations where trying to access these tools like video conferencing systems through their existing booking systems can be highly frustrating for organisations, whereby they can't book the meeting rooms in different international offices. From a personal level, I quite often go to a meeting room that I've booked. There's somebody in there, and you don't want to disturb them, so you're trying to find another meeting room. You find a good meeting space. All right. You settle down, and then someone comes along and wants their meeting room back. So it's it can be highly frustrating.
And I've I guess personal experience through a number of organisations where booking of travel to go to meetings is very often easier than booking of conferencing facilities to have the meeting by the alternative means. One thing I heard a lot about as well is this requirement for people to bring their own stuff into the organisation. Is that the antidote to the ease of use problem? Allow people to use their own devices?
Yeah. So at Canalis we call it the bring your own technology, because it's more than just bringing in your device. It's also bringing in the apps. And so I think when users get to that level of frustration when they can't use the tools that are provided and provisioned by and configured by their organisation, they look to something that's simpler to use, that gives them that accessibility, and that quite often means the consumer devices. Over the last few years, we've seen prices of smartphones, of tablets decreasing. You have access to free collaboration tools, and by personal preference, a lot of people are using these for day-to-day operations, but obviously they have a number of challenges as well.
Okay, and that I guess is quite connected to that experience element we had. Yeah. Something will be easy to use if you've consumed it yourself, if you like. If you've trained yourself in your spare time on it, if you can then use that as a work tool, you will probably find it easy to use.
Exactly, and
the other area that we hear a lot about is this requirement for flexible working, and I guess the sort of the physical location in which people wish to work these days. Yep. It's no longer as prescriptive as it used to be. Are you seeing that at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of organisations are global. They certainly serve global customers, and that requires going beyond the traditional 9 to 5 type of hours. Sometimes it might be early in the morning, sometimes it might be later in the evening, depending on where your customer is based. But of course, there's a lot more flexible working practices being rolled out across Europe in particular, and that could be from personal issues as well. But also we see a number of larger organisations looking to reduce their office footprints. Maybe scaling down the number of fixed desks and utilising the space, the more personal workspaces that people have either at the home or in temporary locations like coffee shops, right? Or if they're travelling if they're on the go, such as airports, hotels.
Okay, I came across one partner organisation, Polycom actually, and they reported I think it was a 400 million pound reduction in the sort of well, I guess that they were able to liquidate 400 million pounds worth of buildings into more sort of liquid assets, reduced their operating costs by something in the sort of tens of millions, and also had an effect on staff. Their return to work rate for female staff after maternity leave is sort of twice the national average now because of this flexible working program that they have. So it seems to be a very powerful benefit if you can get that institutionalized, I guess, in the organisation. And collaboration tools are part of the package to enable that.
Absolutely, and I think there's a careful balance though that organisations have to address. They, of course, you need that to build up a level of trust with employees, so that they are just as productive at home as they are, say, if they are to be in the office. But it's also accommodating other, as you said, people returning to work after paternity leave or maternity leave. Those sort of things, really. Okay,
so that all sounds wonderful. Sounds like there's absolutely no reason why anybody shouldn't be using this technology, but I guess there might be a few sort of gotchas that you have to be careful of as people bring their own devices in and work from anywhere in the world.
Absolutely, and I think we see three at Canalys. We see three key challenges, really. The first one is around security. We've all heard about cloud services where your personal information is being stored. Yeah. If you're using more consumer grade collaboration tools, and particularly video and audio, where's that information going? What data center? Where is that data center being? Where is that located? Yeah. Is it being stored and recorded or even monitored? And if organisations are talking about sensitive information, whether it's intellectual property or talking about their customers, then that also poses a major issue, particularly in verticals where there's more higher levels of compliance. I'm thinking about the finance sector, government, etc. Yeah.
Okay, and beyond security, then any other sort of issues that I guess you will have a plethora of devices, and potentially you talked about free applications. Does that bring with it some issues as well?
Absolutely. So it raises a big issue about compatibility. Right. So if you think about it, in the past, nobody really owned a communications process. If you wanted to send a letter, you could send a letter. If you wanted to place a telephone call, you'd just pick up the phone and send it, make a telephone call. But with everybody using different applications on different devices, those are typically owned by specific software companies, and so that raises a question about creating collaboration silos where maybe people within teams can't even collaborate because they don't have the same application, and there's very little integration between the two. Right. So it's a huge issue.
So one piece of work that Polycom has done again over the last couple of years is to build network infrastructure, so platforms that can live on the network, be it inside your organization or out in the cloud. And I like to refer to them as sort of compatibility engines. It will allow you to dial into this virtual space with whatever device you've chosen to use, your mobile phone or your tablet or whatever, and allow me to maybe dial in from a Polycom room-based conferencing system, and it will deal with the translation headache between me wanting to transmit very high definition and very high bandwidth stuff, you not being able to receive that, so that translation goes on the network. I see that as being quite powerful in sort of allowing people to choose what they use. And the other element I think that's important is that if people wish to choose different devices, there might be one or two applications that they can sort of standardize on, which are available across all those different devices. So regardless of choice of device, a standardized choice of application might be available. So I think there are a couple of ways of dealing with that. Going back to the security issue, have you come across any sort of ideas for how people deal with those particular headaches?
Yeah, so it really depends on the organisation and the level of security required. But I think organisations have got to understand the general business. What they can do, what they can't do, and it's getting a balance of prescribing particular tools or processes that people have to go through, versus being allowing employees and users to decide what tools work for them. So giving people a choice is within defined boundaries is I think is the right choice.
Okay, so sort of getting policy which is, I guess, applicable to the context. Maybe for a quick team meeting, any device is suitable.
Yeah.
But if you're dealing with customer and the customer is sharing their information with you, it has to be in a more sort of secure environment.
Absolutely, and because at the end of the day, you have to guarantee the level of experience that customers have when they engage with your employees. Because if they have a bad experience, then they're gonna it's gonna paint a negative picture of your organisation.
Okay. And talking then about the different sort of workspaces, going back to the Polycom workplace of the future sort of concepts. How are you seeing that segmented now? The sort of the workspace requirements in the organisation.
Well, it's a lot more fluid. I mean, I remember when I started work 15 years ago, it was very much a desk-based job. But now my working day and the workspaces that I operate in, it can vary during the week, and even through the day. It could be at home, it could be at the office, and even in the office it can be in different types of environments. So small huddle rooms to large boardrooms, and even more communal, relaxed areas as well.
Okay. So you have those sort of collaborative workspaces which you're saying are coming in sort of large, medium, and small.
Yeah.
The huddle space is something we hear about in the marketplace a lot now, which is requiring different sort of systems, moving away from sort of large 2-screen room-based systems to something like Real Presence Trio, Real Presence Debut, the Polycom products, where 2 or 3 people can sort of gather around a screen pretty quickly. As you look around the organisation, are there other spaces where you see sort of disparate requirements?
Yeah, so I mentioned communal spaces earlier, but I think this is a big area for a lot of organisations to really assess their use within the workplace. So this could be soft seating areas in the corridors, could be the reception rooms, could be more relaxed environments for I guess more creative meetings where people want to sit down on comfortable seats, bounce ideas off each other, so I think the people's perception of what a meeting room is, or what a traditional meeting room space is changing, and it's no longer just a table and formal setting of chairs and in a dark room.
I think that's really interesting, because you see a lot of coverage, I guess, in the press about how certain sort of leading edge companies have built these collaborative spaces where the assumption is everybody will be in the same room effectively, and there's a football table over there and the like. So getting virtual collaboration into a form factor that would allow informal collaboration when people are in different parts of the world is kind of an interesting idea. And that's I think part of what Polycom's thinking was in developing this Real Presence Centro product, where it does allow you to generate a more sort of informal feel to the meeting as you sit in soft seating, and you can maintain eye contact and all that sort of stuff. As you move into other communities, particularly at the senior level of the organisation, are there special requirements there?
Yes. So when you're talking to executives and their expectations, it's a whole different ball game. Their level of tolerance is pretty low for technology that doesn't work. So when you're particularly in boardrooms that are used only by CEOs or the C-level team, then a different approach has to be taken, a more of a concierge and more managed approach, where they don't have time to learn how to use the system. They just want to come to a room, get it going.
Right. Okay. So for the VIP, I guess you need
so
a sort of
people,
white
yeah.
glove. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I refer to them as very impatient people.
Yeah.
That's accurate. But I've certainly come across that in many organisations, that they do require zero interaction with the technology. I think it's been summarised to me by one person who said that the easiest system to use is the system I don't have to use at all. I just come in, sit down, and sort of interact with the people at the far end. Talking about the communal spaces and the solutions that you might put in there, do you see any requirement for people to be able to declare themselves as the user of the system in order to sort of gain access and to have their calendars come up and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think one of the main barriers for using these systems is to get it going. I mean,
Right.
quite a lot. I've been in situations and meetings where, and also talking to friends and family, they've been in meetings where the first 10 minutes, first 15 minutes of it is occupied by people trying to work out how to set up the meeting. Whereas if you can just come into the room, into a system, and it starts automatically or with very little interaction, and particularly with dialing in the numbers,
Right.
I think that's going to drive a lot of usage, and also that it introduces security issues as well, overcomes some security issues as well. So a lot of organisations require auditing of people, of usage of the tools, of what's being said and when and to who, and certainly being able to introduce some sort of insight and analytics into the system is good.
So we've done a bit of work in allowing systems that might be placed in communal areas to have something like a QR code on the screen. So I can now approach that system. I haven't booked it. I just noticed that it's free to use. I can scan the QR code, and I will effectively pair my personal device with that huddle room system. My calendar then is available on my personal device, and I can ask that device to join a meeting which is in my calendar. So I think it's moving us toward that day that you envisage, where you don't really have to interact with the system, which might be a little bit alien to you. You do interact with it via this device that you're very familiar with.
But then people interact with their phones all the time if it's just an app, and I think it's again, it's bringing that sense of ease of use of my personal device. So when people are interacting with these newfangled collaboration systems in the corner of the room, that it's not too scary for them. What other sort of options do you see then to sort of allow organisations to progress to the connected workplace? Yeah, so it's for me it's about connecting the three key different areas. It's about understanding people. It's about the technology that they use, the collaboration tools, and it's also about the workspaces that they operate in. And there's a lot of technologies out there that can benefit them, and there's three that spring to mind. It's around the smart collaboration hubs, whereby it accommodates people and the different devices that they use, the different applications that they use. They all have Bluetooth maybe and Wi-Fi, and they can connect to the same device and share content. The second area is around people-centric collaboration. And again, that's really technology designed for people. So we've talked about it throughout the session, whereby people's user behaviours and habits are taken into consideration. The lack of also the ease of use is kind of at the centre. And the third area is around creating a unified collaboration experience. So again, it takes into account people's preferences in terms of devices and operating systems, but more importantly, it creates a consistent user interface and a consistent application, irrespective of what devices they're using. It could be a mobile device, or it could be more of a room-based device. Okay, that's great. So I think the work we've done then in the sort of the virtual meeting space, which is that compatibility engine, the translation engine on the network, the user-centric design, particularly around the Real Presence Centro, and giving people flexibility to use Polycom applications on whatever device they choose as the easiest one to use, will hopefully sort of bear fruit
for ourselves and our users. So thank you very much indeed for that insight. We'll bring Paula back in now and see if there's any questions that have come in.
Yes, yeah, we've had quite a few questions come in. Someone in particular's kind of said, this all sounds great, very futuristic, but what can they do now to kind of prepare, their workspace for this kind of shift and this requirement coming out from their internal people of, these new ways of working? So I think, Matt, that's probably one for you.
Yeah,
what can they do to prepare?
That's a great question. So in terms of what they can do, of course it depends on the size of organisation, their vertical that they're in, number of locations, etc., etc. But there's, I guess there's 3 simple steps. Although to do in practice is pretty complicated, but there's 3 areas where we see a lot of organisations can focus on, and that's assessing what people are currently using, their employees, what devices they're using, what collaboration tools that they're incorporating, and also where they're doing it. So what workspaces are they operating in? The second area is around access, getting access to meeting rooms, enabling, not just boardrooms and executive meeting rooms, but also huddle rooms as well. And the third area is around driving adoption. So obviously, if you're looking to increase productivity, you need to be able to measure the success of the investment that you're making in these systems, and that's, I think a key indicator is around adoption and what's driving usage. And I think Ray talked about it in terms of the audit trail. Yeah. So being able to be able to assess what rooms are being used by who, gives greater accountability and be able to justify that level of investment.
Right. Yeah, I think measuring who's using the solutions, and maybe more importantly, measuring who's not using the solutions, will allow you to identify communities that you might need to support more in their adoption of the technology, maybe with sort of white glove services, or just communicate its availability to them more enthusiastically. The key though is measuring, and something like Polycom Real Access is an application that you can use to look at sort of usage rates across different parts of the organisation. What's interesting as well, I think, in the adoption area is to be able to translate usage rates back into those business benefits that we talked about at the start. So, what is the effect on carbon footprint, or what is the effect on cost of a particular project? To be able to measure those and communicate those back into the organisation, I think, is an important ingredient there as well.
Yeah.
So it's more of a longer term cultural shift that they need to look at, rather than just kind of install something and then leave it.
Exactly.
Okay, and then someone also asked around if there's any organisations that we've got examples of that are using this new way of working. And I know, Ray, you meet with customers kind of all the time, so I don't know off the top of your head if there's an example that we can share where we've had an organisation that has deployed this kind of work anywhere on any device type of approach and is enabling video and enabled collaboration.
There are
a spot there a bit.
there are actually a good number now. There's some mobility has come to the fore in a couple of organisations. I came across one story where an organisation had enabled their field sales force with mobile devices, with the idea that we cannot train our sales people to be as knowledgeable about this particular area of science as our customers. So what we will do instead is we will enable the sales guys with conferencing technology that they can use when sitting with the customer, and they can connect that customer back into the experts that we have in the organisation, because we know our experts are as expert as the customers. Just the training headache that's required to get all of the salespeople to the same level of competence is too high. So let's connect our experts with expert customers, and it has provided a great benefit.
And I guess that would shorten sales cycles or product development.
Absolutely.
And
I guess in your field as well, connecting the expertise that you have with your clients at a time and place of your clients' choices is bound to help your business too. The other example we had very recently was NATO have been an adopter of the Real Presence Centro product. So this is the 360 camera, provides great eye contact. They have found that difference in the presentation of video conferencing to their users has enabled far greater adoption. It's much easier to use with touch screens and all that sort of stuff. Much more natural, much more relaxed in how people present themselves in the meeting, and they found that sort of very relaxed, informal sort of atmosphere to the meeting has led to much quicker relationship building around the teams, and that in turn has led to faster decision making.
And I think particularly with that solution, you start to forget the technology is there, so it's not seen as being that barrier. You're not conscious.
That's when you know you've done it. You've done it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I think that's kind of all we've got time for on the Q&A part. Just a couple of call to actions for everyone on the call today. If you are interested in particularly looking further into some of the solutions that Ray has mentioned, on the homepage of our .co.uk website, we have a new tool called Your Workspace, and it starts to look at some of the solutions in terms of the type of environment and the workplace that and the workspace that you're trying to enable, whether that's huddle rooms, communal areas, executive offices and stuff. So please definitely go out of your way and take a look at that, and we will send out the link to that tool afterwards. Also, we have a new white paper on the same topic around optimising collaboration in the workplace that Matt has written, so we'll be circulating that after the session today. Also, if you actually want to come into one of our executive experience centres, we hold regular open days throughout the world, but in EMEA we hold them in London, Paris and Moscow. So please do look at our local homepages and websites to see the schedule in your region, or alternatively you can always email us at inquiries@polycom.com, and we'll arrange for you to come in and kind of experience all the great things that have been discussed today. So that's all we've got time for today. So thank you to both Matthew and Ray for taking the time. A really informative session. And it would be fantastic if you could just stay on just at the end of this call, because we have a pop-up survey that comes up where you can kind of give some feedback on today's session, and as well thoughts on any future topics for this programme to really kind of make sure that we deliver what you'd like to see in our ongoing webinar programme. So thank you once again, and that's all we've got time for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.